David was the one that led Nicky Cruz to the Lord, the gangster up in New York. And that's where you get the book, The Cross and the Switchblade, one of the greatest stories of redemption. And Nicky Cruz is actually still pastoring in that general area where that Tabernacle Church was that David Wilkerson pastored in New York City for many years. But Mark, I want to go back to something we said a while ago, and you can share with us as much as you feel led to share, but I want to get your thoughts on the Copeland situation, because it was a disturbing video, man. And look, I know that people have their opinions out there, and we're about to express ours, and you don't have to agree with this. You can agree, not disagree, whatever. But that whole moment that they caught on camera, it's amazing how things are revealed just like that about somebody's spirit when they're pressed, and you touch a button, because what you see on that camera many times, Mark, is not what is going on behind the scenes.
That's right.
And I know you've had a taste of that many times, because you've dealt with a lot of these folks behind the curtain. You've been on a lot of shows, and I'm just going to let you speak as freely as you feel like you can speak about this. But I want you to tell us a little bit about what we're seeing with our eyes and what's really going on behind the scenes.
I believe what you're seeing with your eyes right now is a manifestation of the demonic right now. And a lot of these people, I'm not going to single anybody out. It's just because there's stuff that goes on behind the scenes, Chris, in a lot of these ministries that people don't know. These people are one thing in front of the camera, and there's something different behind the camera, off camera. And so right now with technology, it's getting harder and harder to do anything without it being caught on camera, period. Because everybody's got a camera right here. They carry it with them everywhere they go.
That's true.
And if something starts going down, you've got 10 people there with a camera or with a video, you know what I mean? And they're videoing it. So the privacy days are over with. So if there is something that you have not submitted to the Lord, and I know some of these big pastors, people think, oh my gosh, he's been doing this for 40 years or this, that, and the other. You don't understand, guys. There's a reason some of these people are that high up, and it's not good, period. God's already said he's going to expose those who are not righteous in the pulpit or have other things going on, so to speak. And I'm not saying he does, but I'm saying you're seeing the exposure of all these things taking place right now, just like the guy out in California, like we've been talking about. And so, I mean, you're going to see more and more of this. So God is not even really having to expose them, Chris. They're exposing themselves.
Exactly.
They really are. They're exposing themselves. So that's where I believe was what's going on right now. God has said it was coming. We just need to be prepared, because there's going to be a whole lot more.
Interesting. I will leave it at that. We'll leave it there. I want to take the last 10 or 15 minutes, Mark, and let you talk about a gentleman that you met, and we're trying to connect with him ourselves, because I feel led to talk a little bit more about the home groups, home churches that are about to spring up. And you was telling me that there's a gentleman that actually the Lord has anointed him, that he's trying to get information to people on how to literally start a home group if they want to. I'll use my own term that you like to quote me on a lot, and I'll use it again tonight. Look, we came in, this church, the true church, came in the book of Acts going house to house. Mm-hmm. And there's absolutely no reason to believe that we're not going to go out the same way. And with everything we're talking about here tonight and the breakdown of the church, Mark, we do a little Sunday morning show, and we've been doing it about 8 or 9 months now. And this thing is growing. There's no telling how many people are watching it. I don't even know anymore how many are, because there's so many. We're getting letters and emails from all over this world, this country, from all four corners saying, we don't have a church, and we're here on Sunday morning with you. And in fact, I had some lady tell me the other day that they literally take their laptop, put it in a kitchen table, and her family lives beside them, and they come and sit around the table on Sunday morning, and they have church with this gray-headed dude. We got a baptismal service coming up at the end of July of a family in Nebraska that's traveling all the way from Nebraska to Tennessee to have us baptize them. They got saved recently. The son did, and the family came back to God. And those things have been just happening on steroids. And I'm not saying that to point to me. Make no mistake about this, folks, but I'm saying this to make a point here. The institutionalized church is dying, and people are fleeing this thing like there's no tomorrow. And they're looking for a safe haven, Mark. They're looking for safety. They need that nourishment. They want to fellowship one with another. I'll say this real quick. I'm trying to get it back to you as quickly as I can, but it needs to be said. Mm-hmm. You know, people judge people that are out of church, and they say, well, they're just not, they're forsaking the assembling of themselves together if they don't go to church on Sunday. You know, and the Bible tells us to, you know, to come and do this and that. Okay. If your faith, though, is being destroyed by being in the building on Sunday, you can dislike Chris for saying this all you want to, and you can call me a hater or divider or whatever you call. You don't need to be in that church if that church is destroying your faith. I don't care what name it's under. I don't care how rich it is. I don't care how great the pastor is. If that church has become toxic, you get out of it, and you find a place where you can assemble yourselves together. And I just believe, Mark, that this home group, these home churches, whatever you want to call them, is where it's like we started there, and as we're getting to the end and God is destroying this whole false church system, it's headed back to the home. And I want you to speak to that real quick as we talk the next 10, 15 minutes and wrap this up.
Yeah, we've talked about it many times about the home groups. We call them home congregations because the word church in the original writings doesn't really it doesn't exist. It was home. It was congregations, so it refers to people. So when you do a study, this is how some things have been changed and manipulated, whatever the case may be. And so the word church refers to a building. And this is where we have to change our vocabulary. We've got to change, and I'm guilty of it too. I'll say church a lot of times because this is the way we've been brought up. And so it's the congregation. It's the home congregations is where this whole thing's going to go, where you're going to see the signs, wonders, and miracles, I believe, begin to fall. But this gentleman named Russ Wagner, I have his permission to, because you're trying to get him on for an interview. He has set up a 12-week online course that is free, basically. And I was looking down because I was pulling up his information for everybody. And so you can take this 12-week online course of how to start a home congregation. That's what this is all about. And it's really in depth because what I like about the stuff that Russ is doing right now, Chris, is that he gives you scripture and backs it up scripturally and historically with, the scripture or with historic facts of what these churches were. The churches never existed, period. They were always met in a home, in someone's home. You know what I mean? So, let me give his website out, and I'll say it twice so when people get it, it's singular, OmegaKingdomMinistry.org. OmegaKingdomMinistry.org. So his name is Russ Wagner. And so you guys, I encourage you, go to his website, read some of that information. If you're wanting to start a home group, it doesn't cost you anything, guys. It's free. That's the beautiful thing about it. And the other thing is that, guess what? Jesus is now the head of your ministry. You haven't cut the head off by becoming incorporated through the state. You haven't cut the head off, Lord, through the 501c3. You're placing the head back on the body. You know, what's the scripture talk about where it says the foxes have dens, but the Son of Man has no place to rest his head? You know, you're placing the headship of Jesus Christ back on the congregation.
That's right.
And so that's when the miracle signs and wonders will break out as in these home groups. There's a false one coming, and we can go into that on another program, and they're trying to usher that in now through the institutionalized stuff. But anyhow, but it's the home congregations, guys, is where we're going to get back to, I believe. And so, you know, we talked about, the Lord told me that we needed to be missionaries to our communities. You know, we're missionaries to every country on this nation or on this globe, but we're not missionaries to our communities, which is why our communities are falling apart. So if you look at a map and you put little red dots on it, and those represent a home congregation, draw a 360-degree circle around it, and you take care of the people in that circle, whether they're homeless, whether it's your neighbor, the little lady next door needs tires for her cars, whatever the case may be. And so you take care of that. So when you get enough circles and they begin to overlap, you have overlapping coverage, which is what the Lord's been showing me, which is what was supposed to happen to begin with. So now when your tithes and offerings come in, and don't get fooled into thinking your tithes have to be money. No, it can be baby clothes for somebody. It can be baby food for somebody. I mean, whatever the God places on your heart for taking care of in your circle of influence.
Exactly.
If that makes sense. So, we get caught up with these prosperity gospel preachers saying it's got to be money, and it doesn't, man. It's you bring it all to there. Whoever's in need. You know what I mean? That's the great thing about it.
It's great, Mark. And let me just throw this in about the prosperity preacher.